Hello, I'm David Wood, and I've created a pre-reading activity to pique the interest of students and connect this subject to any pre-existing knowledge that they have. We will also compare and contrast this topic with knowledge of other subjects. I've used a presentation tool called a Prezi to make this an interactive presentation. Students will watch the Prezi, previewing the text and pictures, but with a narration of the reading. The class will use a directed reading thinking activity utilizing the printed copy of the text and imagery that is in this presentation. Students will create their own questions and set their own purposes for reading. In real class, we'll have more time to navigate through all the slides and pictures. This presentation will be at a little faster pace.
These are the California History and Social Science standards that apply to this lesson. Samurai warriors, who were they? Early samurai were archers, fighting on foot or horseback with extremely long bows. They used swords mainly for finishing off wounded enemies. The samurai wore full body armor in battle, often including a horned helmet. How do they compare to European medieval knights? What did they look like? Samurai warriors took great care in styling their hair, which they pulled back into a top knot. The samurai's everyday wear was a kimono, usually consisting of an outer and an inner layer. The samurai's swords were normally thrust through an obi, a belt wrapped around the waist, and were worn on the left-hand side. When indoors, the samurai would remove his longsword, but he was always armed with some form of weaponry. Why were the samurai important? Near the end of the Heian period, warriors were increasingly hired by wealthy landowners that had grown independent of the central government and built armies for their own protection. The two most powerful of these landowning clans, the Minamoto and Taira, eventually challenged the central government and battled each other for supremacy over the entire country. The Minamoto clan emerged victorious and set up a new military government led by the shogun, or supreme military commander. When were they the most active, and when did their power fade? During the chaotic era of warring states in the 15th and 16th centuries, Japan splintered into dozens of independent states constantly at war with one another. Consequently, warriors were in high demand. It was also the era when ninja, warriors specialized in unconventional warfare, were most active. The country was eventually reunited in the late 1500s, and a rigid social caste system was established during the Edo period that placed the samurai at the top, followed by the farmers, artisans, and merchants respectively. During this time, the samurai were forced to live in castle towns, and were the only ones allowed to own and carry swords, and were paid in rice by their daimyo, or feudal lords. Japan's feudal era eventually came to an end in 1868, and the samurai class was abolished a few years afterwards. Who was the boss? Samurai answered only to the daimyo, lord, for whom they worked. The daimyo in turn answered only to the shogun, military dictator. The samurai code emphasized loyalty to one's master even over family loyalty. History shows that the most loyal samurai were usually the family members or financial dependents of their lords. Bushido. How does it compare to chivalry and European knights? The culture of the samurai was grounded in the concept of Bushido, the way of the warrior. The central tenets of Bushido are honor and freedom from fear of death. A samurai was legally entitled to cut down any commoner who failed to honor him or her properly. A warrior imbued with Bushido spirit would fight fearlessly for his master and die honorably rather than surrender in defeat. Bushido in the 20th century. Bushido was revived and promoted in the 20th century to serve the purposes of the military government. During World War II, the spirit of Bushido was invoked to inspire Japanese kamikaze pilots to sacrifice themselves by crashing their planes into U.S. warships. The spirit of Bushido was also present in the fierce resistance the Japanese soldiers put forth against overwhelming odds, preferring death in battle to dishonor by capture or surrender. This is the end of our preview. Thank you for watching.